Coming up on this episode.
What if everything you thought you knew about reality was merely a wrinkle in the grand tapestry of existence?
What if? Well, we're going to get into it today and cover the top metaphysical mysteries that we all wonder about.
Yes, like ghosts, multiple dimensions, Sasquatch, all the things.
Yes, let's do this.
Come explore the depths of consciousness, where we raise the vibes and open minds.
Welcome to the Grounded Galactic Podcast. I'm Allison.
I'm Emily. And if you like our content, subscribe.
And speaking of ghosts, do not ghost the like button.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. All right. So what's number one on our list of our top mysteries that we all wonder about, Emily?
Where do humans come from, dear sister?
We could literally have an entire podcast episode on that.
We could.
But I think people want to know, do we have a creator? Who's the ultimate creator? Like, who created the creator? And like, why did humans even get made? I feel like that's the questions people are asking themselves.
I agree, and I don't know the answer to that question.
Like, how many times have we literally sat on a huge boulder on a cliff on a mountainside with our cousins when we were kids, talking about this stuff?
Lots of time.
This is the big question. Where did we come from? Who made us? That's the big question. And I think that relates right into what is the meaning of life, because it's like, well, why are we here? What's the meaning of it?
Do you think if we knew what our origin of our existence was, that it would answer all the other questions we're about to go through?
I think it will answer a lot of them. It will definitely give us more than just a wrinkle of understanding.
So what's your take on it? I think my take on the thing that I lean towards the most is that God is consciousness, and we all come from this consciousness that just exists. I have no other explanation or belief system than that.
Yeah, when I think of this question, we've talked about it in another episode, and I think I've said something to the fact of God is this all-encompassing energy of everything. I am God, you are God, this table is God, that light is God, the things we can't see are God, everything is God. And so when I think of where we came from, I'm sure in one breath I can say there's a time, quote, I'm air quoting time, when humans didn't exist. But I also know that in speaking of time, that everything exists all at once. And so humans had to have always existed, kind of thing. So, it's so complex. Our brains cannot really fathom. But I think this is why I think people love talking about these topics, because it's so vastly just complicated. And there's so many like elements to it that you have to think about. It's fascinating to have these types of conversations with people.
When you talk about time, it's hard for me to like wrap my head around the idea that there is no time in the sense that all things exist at the same time. I just can't wrap my brain around how, let's say the Egyptian civilization that we know from our history books is also at its peak right now, at the same time as we are doing our thing. Yet our society has been built on the histories and the knowledges that have been gained from civilizations that apparently are also existing simultaneously. I don't understand that, so I'll be interested in your explanation on your concept of how you see time.
It's like everything is now, because time is an illusion, if you want to think of it that way. It's a construct. It's something that we've created in order to have experiences, because from what I understand, and we'll talk about it when we talk about number 7 on the list, but in the spirit world, and I don't want to jump ahead or whatever, but there is an experience where time does not exist. And as soon as you think of something, there it is right in front of your face. Like there's no lapse of time. But us as humans, we like to have that experience. We like to have surprises. We like to see the growth. We like to go through a progression. Otherwise, there's no really growth to be had. As far as the origins of humans, my take on this is that humans have always existed, but I also think at the same time we have evolved. It's like a this and that concept instead of this or that. All infinite realities contain other infinite realities, contain other infinite realities. If you want to think about it as everything that is encompassing of that is God. Well, there's also a God of that and a God of that and a God of that. And it goes literally into infinity. It never stops. When I think of what's the origin of humans, to me, it's like, that's not the real question. The real question is, what is the nature of existence? That's what I kind of strive to answer, because you could insert anything after origin of, and it's the same answer to me. What's the origin of cats? What's the origin of planets? What's the origin of stars? What's the origin of spaghetti? To me, the answer is the same.
Italy.
It exists because that's its nature. It exists. It can't never exist. Nothing can ever cease existing.
But can it spring into existence?
From someone's maybe perspective from a 3D reality, yes, something might be like, that poofed into existence, or I created that. It was never created before. But again, we're going through this progression of this illusion of time where, yes, that thing did exist. You're just on a vibrational frequency now where you can perceive that as something, but you're building in this past of having a memory of, I created that, because you want that experience. This could be a whole discussion. This is why it's number one on our list. This is the big question. Where did we come from? Who made us? I would love to hear from the audience. Like, we want your comments. Okay. Do we want to go to number 2, or did you want to say anything else? Number 2.
Number 2 is all about free will. What is free will?
What does that mean? Do we have free will? I think a lot of people ask themselves, do we have free will? Because a lot of people, even in metaphysical circles, don't believe we have free will.
First of all, we need to define free will.
Okay, define it.
What's your definition?
My definition? My definition of free will is, I feel no limitations or restrictions, and I can make the decisions to have the power over myself to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it.
Power over yourself.
Power over myself.
Making choices.
No limitations.
No limitations. I see free will very similarly, just general freedom, free to do X, Y, or Z. And I think a lot of it has to do with having control over your own mind and control of your thoughts. I think a person can think they have free will, but really they're just being pulled in the different directions of the advertising.
Yeah.
Media environment.
Hey, manipulation in the media, that could be a whole episode too on the effects on your free will. Someone can go through their whole life thinking they're free to have made all the decisions they've made, but somebody else from the outside can look at that, or they're on their deathbed looking back at their life and going, nope, I let my bank account control me. I let such and such control me. People can feel like they have free will, but really, do they?
I think we're a product of all the things that influence us in our lives. The people, the things, the environments. Free will exists, but how much can we really tap into it amongst all the noise and all the other influences?
I think some of the sub-questions under this is not just what free will is, but do we truly have free will when let's say someone is born with a disability, or someone is born into maybe a family with abusive parents. I'm just thinking of something that happens like in a childhood scenario where they're like, that doesn't seem like you have any freedom. You don't have any free will. You can't make your own decisions. Or then even as an adult, when it's like, well, I don't feel like I have free will because I have to get a driver's license if I want to drive, and I have to pay my taxes, this and that, and I got to follow all these rules and regulations and all these laws. People are born and they don't have their sight. What are they going to think about free will? What's their perception of free will? You know what I mean?
Sure. I think the more physical limitations and mental limitations, when I say mental, I mean intellectual or developmental. When we have more limitations, I could imagine that it would be harder for people that have, especially multiple limitations, to think that they have free will. Is that what you're trying to get at?
I mean, yeah, definitely. And I think too, at different stages of your life, like as soon as you become a parent, you might feel like your free will goes way out the window. But some parents definitely, I think, continue to do what they want and do all this and are able to incorporate their parenting And then some people are not able to incorporate their parenting into that. And then you have, I think, some parents that are very self-sacrificing and aren't sure how to continue to express their own will and power over themselves while also being responsible for other people. And, or like as soon as you get a job or start college, or as soon as this, that, or the other, that people are all of a sudden they have an extra like layer of not having control over something in their life. And so they start thinking about, am I really free? I really get to do what I want to do. Is there even such a freaking thing as free will? Because I don't know anybody who is 100% free or feel free. You know what I mean? Like, that's just my take on it.
My mind is going to a graphic that I saw, and it was research on happiness, which that's been, dead.
Beat with a dead horse.
With a dead horse.
A dead horse being beaten.
Yes.
What's this?
I don't know.
Don't beat a dead horse.
Yes. The horse has been beat to death. Okay. About happiness research. But as you're talking about free will, I'm thinking about this graph that I saw where essentially it's like happiness or fulfillment or whatever you want to think of it. Obviously, it's not static over life, and it tends to, especially as we become parents and get into our 30s and 40s, it goes way down, and there's this dip from our, quote unquote carefree days as a young person that doesn't have as many adulting responsibilities, although some children certainly do take on those responsibilities early for whatever reason. But as we tend to get into those adulting years and we're transitioning from youth to adult, the curve kind of goes down, and then it goes way down when you're in our 40s. 40s into 50s tend to be the lowest, and then as we're sort of kind of approaching retirement or the later stages of life, it goes up because now we've had those life experiences and we've had those responsibilities, but we're also to a point where we're exercising more free will and spending our time more on our own versus having to raise our kids. Now, it doesn't always work out so easily for everyone, but I think there's a correlation between levels of happiness and how much we're really exercising our free will, because that free will is a static line. It exists all throughout our entire lifetime.
Yes.
Well, at least it starts at the point when we're aware of it,
Yeah.
And when we're young kids, we're beholden to the people, our caretakers. But once we become aware, especially as we're entering our later adolescence and of course into adulthood, when we really understand that actions have consequences and we can make choices, then we get locked into these responsibilities and society's pressures about you got to go to college, you got to get the 9-to-5 job, you got to have kids, all the things we've talked about. And then you feel as though your free will has been taken from you. You still have your free will. It's just that the responsibilities have replaced that sense of freedom. You now know you have to do, or you feel as though you have to do all the things for your kids to make sure that they have a good life and that they're taken care of, for example. Like,
It's
you never
almost-
lose that free will.
Right. It's almost like you are intentionally putting free will to the back of your mind and saying, I can't have that in my life right now, so I'm going to put it on hold until I retire. And I don't know how many people I have talked to, especially our age, who maybe are done with half of their working life and they've past that halfway point of maybe they've been working for like 20 years or so by now, and they're thinking maybe in another 20 years I get to finally retire. And they have all these plans with all these things that they want to do. And I'm like, you don't have to put your life on hold just because you have a job, So yeah, I think people are very curious about that free will because people do feel trapped and locked down and they feel like they're not free. And then they think about, what will I do when I'm free?
Well, I think, and it's especially so for people who are caretaking for others, whether or not it's children or an older parent.
Or they have bills. I mean, even just a single person,
Sure.
their responsibilities to themselves, but I mean, they still feel trapped because they feel like they have to go to a job and make bills. Okay. So free will, definitely a big topic. That's number 2. I think this leads just so cleanly into the next 2 topics. So our third topic is all about karma.
Like goes around, comes back around.
Yeah. Like, what is karma and how does that inform our lives and how we think about the afterlife too?
I absolutely believe in karma. And frankly, I hope that karma exists, because when we were making our list, I'm thinking, I feel like I know that there are some things I really would like to atone for.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go the other way.
I was. That's also on the other side of my mind is, yeah, there's a lot
Can't
of
wait
people
for them to
doing.
get there.
Right. I want,
Revenge, you know,
I want the
punishment.
Epsteins of the world to have their punishment, obviously. But I think about it for myself too. I think none of us are perfect. We do things we regret sometimes, and we carry guilt and shame. And so then to clear that, it can be hard I know it's been hard for me to kind of clear my soul, clear my spirit, clear my mind, to forgive myself. I feel like something has to be done to me, maybe, or I have to be put in a new scenario or live another life in order to atone for the biggest mistakes I've made. So I hope karma does exist. I think that it does. And I think, unfortunately, if I do have another life after this one and reincarnate, then I have a feeling it may not be the best one. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm hearing you say you believe in karma, your deeds and your acts and your thoughts build up karma, positive or negative, and that you feel you're at a place where you feel like you need to make up for some things. So correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying that you feel like you've had more negative karma than positive karma at this point? The reason why I'm asking that is because I bet a lot of people would answer yes to that question.
Probably yes. Yes, probably. And I think we don't always record the positive experiences or the positive deeds that we do. I think the negative ones get registered more. And I'm pretty sure there's some brain science in there about that, just in terms of the thoughts we tend to carry around and think over and over again tend to be more negative. Karma's a bitch, and I think it's coming around.
I have a different take on karma, and I'm informed by a teacher that I follow. I'm actually reading a book right now from Sadhguru called Karma. The literal definition of karma is action. And what I think of karma is, yes, everyone has things in their life that they have done that they then are defining in their mind as like, that was a good thing I did, that was a bad thing I did, and that was a neutral thing I did, and whatever they categorize in their head and with their emotions, all of the things they've done, said, maybe or not. Maybe they're keeping secrets. Maybe it's not doing something to anybody else, but it's something you did when nobody else is around and they feel like they don't have any integrity or whatever that is. That show, The Good Place on Netflix, where to get into heaven or hell is based on like you get all these points throughout your life of anytime you eat a hamburger, it's negative points. And every time you shake someone's hand, it's positive points or whatever. And I think people see karma like that a lot because in Christian teachings, you're made to think that you're a sinner from the time you're born and that your whole entire life you have to make up for freaking existing.
Bad, baby, bad.
And that you have to, and all of this. And I'm not here to judge anybody's religion. I'm just saying that's what Christianity teaches. But then you have other religions where it's not like that. People aren't already coming into this world with this teaching that something is wrong with them. They need to feel guilty about their life and that they have to. I know for some people, maybe it motivates them to be a good person, but it doesn't come from a natural place, if you will. But I think of karma more as anything that you do, you are creating a vibrational frequency. And this vibrational frequency might attract, it's like attracts like, right? Think of it as magnetics. What you put out is what you get back. So if you're putting out something of a certain vibratory frequency that most people would perceive as negative, you're probably going to have something come back at you pretty soon at some point that's going to also be of that same vibrational frequency. Now, how swift that happens, I don't know. But I think that doesn't have anything to do with the other person. I think it has everything to do with you because you're at a certain vibrational frequency where you have experiences that are akin to that vibrational frequency. And this leads amazingly into our next one. And you even said the word reincarnate a minute ago, and that's our number 4, which is when they think about karma, how can I make up for it? Can I do it in another life? Holy crap, I want to make up for my mistake. So I hope that reincarnation is the thing because I want to do that. So I don't think people need to hold on to guilt like that. I don't feel like karma builds up. The actions that they do have a vibrational frequency and something akin to it might come back at them. If you want to call that karma.
Might it amplify though? If you put something out and it has a vibrational frequency and you keep putting it out, right? Doesn't it amplify? Is it a synergistic energy wave? Is it additive?
Your vibrational frequency does not build upon itself.
Sequential? Like how do you conceptualize.
You have a vibrational frequency every single moment. Like, it doesn't build up. It's whatever it is at that moment is whatever it is. If you have repeated negative things, what that means to me is not that things are stacking up, but that you're lowering in vibrational frequency. And the lower you go, generally, the more negative that is. So it doesn't mean you just doubled yourself up because you did 2 bad deeds in a row or whatever. It's more like if you do 2, quote, bad deeds in a row, that just means you're lowering in your vibrational frequency, and you need to catch yourself and move yourself back up in vibrational frequency.
You might be 2 standard deviations from the mean now.
Oh my God.
Just saying.
Okay.
May not be doubling up, but if you're going lower, you might be twice as far from neutral.
Maybe, but why does that necessarily matter?
I'm just trying to see how you see it conceptually. And
it's all vibrational frequency, I think, and everything that comes with that. So my thing is, like, if you feel like you've done a lot of, negative deeds or bad deeds or things you need to atone for, why are you trying to wait for a next life? Why can't you attempt to, if you feel like you need to, do something about it in the life you're already living?
And I think most people take that approach, that they're trying to make up for something in the life that they're currently living. Some people may just be completely hopeless or lazy and don't want to deal with it and aren't yet ready to deal with it. But yeah, for me, like, I'm trying to clear some of my karma for sure. Like, I'm definitely going to invest in that. And hopefully through that process, the guilt will be released little bits at a time.
When we talk about where do people come from, is there a God? Do we have free will? Is there karma? People's natural next curiosity is, do we get to live multiple lives? When we die, what happens? Do I get to reincarnate back on Earth?
I believe that the soul is eternal. And I believe that the driver behind the soul can choose to incarnate. If they're on a plane of existence, if they're on the death plane, whatever that looks like, if we're not in the physical body, I think that, yes, we can have multiple incarnations. Right now, my mind is trying to wrap around having multiple realities and multiple incarnations at the same time, because if everything is here and now and at the same time, I don't see how a past life karma situation and a current life or a future life. I know I'm saying past, present, future, but everything's now. So
yeah, but you're
you know what I
tying
mean?
karma into it again, and I don't think
But
that's
it's
necessarily
tied in
well,
together.
for you it is. For me, it's not. And we're going to talk about our next one is going to be about life after death, and I think maybe I'll talk about it there. Or I'll just talk about it now, because to me, I'm separating karma and reincarnation in my mind, because I know that when you die, your body dies, you have a life review. And if you want to call it karmic corrections or whatever, that happens in your life review. You don't carry it into your next future life. It is hard to wrap your head around thinking about everything is here and now, and you've lived all of your past lives, future lives, parallel lives. They're all being lived right now. But think of it like channels on a TV. You turn on your TV, and at the same time, there are hundreds of programs happening. All you have to do is just click a button to switch to the next one, and it's right there. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It exists. So whichever one you decide to watch for that hour is the life you experience. And then you decide you want to switch the channel, and your soul wants to go experience living in Honduras in the 1500s.
Do you think that we carry through our genes or through our memories or something, or through our energy frequency, do you think we carry one life to another
No.
so that we have some type of memory or impression of this other life?
I'm going to say yes and no, because not in the way that you're saying it. It doesn't start with our genes. It starts with our soul contract, and it starts with what our soul wants to learn. So let's say our soul wants to learn a particular lesson because after one of its life reviews, if we're speaking linearly, time-wise, it decided that it wanted to learn a lesson and didn't. So it's going to set up its next incarnation in hopes to learn that lesson that maybe it didn't learn. So maybe if you want to think of karma that way, or maybe it's like there, I learned all my lessons, yay, now I want to have a new experience. Your spirit guides and your soul family. There's this whole thing up there, if you want to say up there, where you're planning what you want, how you want to design your next life. You say that I want to have such and such life path with such and such type of family and in this particular physical location or on this planet, then you kind of find that vibrational frequency. And so you're kind of designing towards that. And so if you're having like, okay, you're in a physical body, then the DNA structure, the genetic memories, the limitations you put on yourself, that's what will crystallize in your being. It starts at the soul level. It's not coming from family lineages per se. You're just picking the particular relevant lineage that already has a particular DNA code. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. That's not how I believe in. I mean, I don't really think soul contracts are a thing. And to me, it's like if we're on the other side of the veil, if we're,
Don't think of it as a contract. Think of it as just a plan.
even so, if we were making a plan or trying to design or set up a life so that we can learn a particular lesson, to me, that's at odds with free will in some ways. Free will should be completely open. Whereas if we have a soul
You can break
contract
your
or a
soul
soul
contract
plan,
at any time.
yeah, but why would you set, to me, it just doesn't to me, it just means we don't have free will.
I think that's
If
how
we're
people interpret
if
it.
we're before being like, okay, I need to incarnate into this family because their history has been such and such and they've had these experiences, so I need to be in this environment so that I can live out and put myself in a good position to learn the lesson that I want to learn. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so let's say you're a soul, you're a being that doesn't experience time or physical reality. There's so many things that can be experienced as a 3D, 4D physical being that cannot be experienced at the soul level. And a lot of growth can happen when you become a physical being. These things are not separate. Our souls aren't inside our body, our bodies are inside our souls. The crystallized 3D version of this physical body that I am, that's inside this grand soul that I am, doesn't always know the soul's plan because there is this forgetting, if you will, as soon as you're born and you come through the daggone birth canal, you don't remember that my soul has decided that I wanted to come and be born on a place where I don't know that I'm a soul. I don't know that souls exist. I've had to learn that my whole life. We've come to a place to have massive limitation because I feel like from a soul level, what else is there to do? There's always a progression. The only thing that is constant in all of existence is change. And so I don't think a soul is going to be stagnant. They're going to want to learn lessons, have different experiences. They're going to want to try to design that in a way. And maybe they have some lives where there's no design on it. It's like they're just wanting to throw a dart at a dartboard and see where it lands.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking about the ancestral things that, in my view, pass down to us and pass down through us. And I'm thinking about the field of epigenetics. And there are studies and theories out there about, for example, why certain groups of people might be scared of dogs. I'm talking particularly about some thinking around slaves, forced labor in what became the United States, and that dogs were used to essentially keep slaves in line or for whatever nefarious purpose that slave owner needed to use the dog for. Those experiences could have been very traumatic, and that trauma is laid into DNA, which is then passed on for generations. And so now you have people who have never even had an experience with a dog, good or bad, and then all of a sudden there's a dog in their life and they're very afraid of the dog. And they don't know why they're afraid of the dog, but there's something imprinted in their DNA, the sort of the outcome of the ancestral lineage that has come before them, that has seeded them, that now is affecting them, and they may not even know the origin of that.
How is that in misalignment with what I'm saying, though? As a soul, you already know going in how that DNA is going to crystallize whatever it is, whatever your fears are, instincts are, any of that generational trauma. It's not that that doesn't influence you. It's like that's not the cause, that's a result of. So the cause is at the soul level, you're choosing this, and that creates the DNA structure that matches with that particular generation. That's the cause.
I guess it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around, okay, we're sitting in the ether, we're trying to figure out which life to live next, what lesson we want to learn. Now, all of a sudden, just because I'm in the ether, I have all this knowledge about all these people on Earth and these lineages and what their
No.
DNA is made of. How am I to decide what family to be born into?
No, it's not like that. You're not thinking about a specific place, a specific person, a specific Earth, because there are infinite versions of me and you and an Earth and in Arkansas and your grandpa and grandma. They're honing in on a vibrational plan. And that vibrational plan will then pinpoint that particular place and time because it matches up.
So once they've made that vibrational choice, the universe just does its work and bloop, puts you in where that signature is, time and space-wise. The way you describe it just sounds so convenient.
Why would it not? Why would it not be easy?
It sounds too buttoned up. It just sounds like.
Why do you want it to be like harder though?
I just
Why
don't
does
think
it
it's
have to
that
be
simple,
harder?
is all I'm saying.
Why does it have to be more complex?
Why do we not have access to all the knowledge and all the learning in the ether? Why do we, I guess my question to you is, why do you think
To have an
we'd be
experience
we'd be
that you
coming
don't.
back? Like
It's not coming back. It's not
coming
backward.
to, going to, learning whatever
To
lesson
have
we
an
think we need to learn.
experience. Same reason you go to Disney World, to have an experience.
Is it possible to learn lessons and have experiences not incarnating?
Yes.
Then why incarnate?
To try something. Why not? Here's another caveat of it. Learning lessons is not always the purpose of incarnating. Sometimes it's to be in service of. So, for example, for me, I know one of the reasons I'm here, I have a mission, and I know it's to be in service of humanity. So that's a reason to incarnate. There are, I'm sure, a multitude of reasons to incarnate besides learning some lesson that you didn't, quote, learn in a prior or parallel life. I think you're oversimplifying it, but also at the same time, you're wanting it to be more complex. And to me, it's just like, this is the only game in town. Souls are at a certain level. There are all kinds of levels that we cannot even fathom. So us asking the question, why would a soul XYZ? We don't know. We're not experiencing from the soul level. So how can we say that, like, why would a soul do this or that? Well,
and you're kind of getting to my point in terms of like, you have answers that are so buttoned up and so just matter of fact, like this is the way it is. We are not on the soul plane right now. We are in our incarnated bodies. How do we know?
Because I am informed by my 15 years of studying things like this.
And
from my
other people
own
who are living
and
life right
my
now and not in the soul realm.
dreams and astral experiences with aliens and experiences with ghosts. And if it resonates with me, then it resonates with me. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
All I'm saying is soul contracts don't resonate with me. I get the concept.
Okay.
I think it's possible. It would be practical.
Like you're approaching me like you're wrong.
No, I'm just challenging you on, you seem so sure. You seem so
Really,
sure.
I am sure. I had, if you recall, our last episode that you weren't in was my near-death experience and what was across the veil and all of that. So I have had that personal experience and have had connections with communicating with my soul in astral projections and out-of-body experiences. Whereas if I never had heard of someone like Bashar or was reading the Sadhguru book or ever heard of Dolores Cannon, I wouldn't even need any of that information because I've had my own experiences that confirm the other stuff that I'm hearing from other spiritual teachers and mediums. So, but some people haven't had those experiences. And, that's the same thing as like having faith in a God in your religion. Someone tells you it and you just decide to believe it because you feel strongly about it or it resonates with you or makes sense to you.
I'm just as challenging of them as you, so don't take it
Okay.
personal.
I'm not taking it personal.
I just think it can be, I don't want to use dangerous at times, but I think it can be divisive when someone is so sure on such a topic
that's
that
my opinion about
is
my
so
life.
experiential based and it's so individualized. My soul is not your soul, and my experience is not your experience. My truth is not your truth. I mean, we've talked about that before. So when someone's so sure, whether or not it's you or an
it rubs you
evangelistic
the wrong
Christian
way when
or
someone is so sure about what they think about the
that it
universe
rubs me
and
the
life.
wrong way, but I really highly value openness and possibilities. Let's talk about religious beliefs really quickly. I know we're trying to move on to the next topic, but when you're so sure that God created Adam and Eve and all the sort of traditional biblical things and how the Bible plays out, and you believe that, and it can be so limiting and divisive, and it just closes you off from other possible explanations of the nature of reality and the things that we're talking about, whether or not it's a Bible loving Christian or an alien loving person. You know what I mean? To me, it's almost the same category type of thing. I don't necessarily think one is right or wrong. I mean, I have my leanings towards the sides of love and however they manifest within these different categories. But I just think it can be problematic when people are so sure that they are sure. I just want to know that you're open to new information.
I am never and have not approached this in a way that this must be everybody else's belief system.
I know that.
I'm telling you what I feel is the truth. And it's not like I just woke up and had this truth from me being day one born. I had a period of time in my life where I was an avid churchgoer.
Yes, I remember.
Not that I, was reading my Bible every day and believed everything in it, because I certainly didn't. And I did that as an adult. Like, I made that choice as an adult, as a young mother, took my kid there, was in the Sunday school, did all the things for 5, 6 something years. But then I felt like I evolved past, like, okay, I've learned everything I feel like I need to learn here, and I'm ready for something different. So I think people, obviously, their belief systems change over time. If somebody, what did you say, this uber religious, God created Adam and Eve, that's their truth. That is a completely valid belief system and completely valid life. And I will never tell them that they are wrong. And I would hope that they would never tell me that I'm wrong, because I don't think that that's helpful or useful to invalidate somebody's experience of what they believe. And I don't think that it's wrong for someone to be so sure, or whatever you're defining as so sure about something. I don't think someone being so sure just automatically means that they're not open-minded.
I see what you're saying. Yes, and I agree with you to an extent. I don't want to invalidate anyone's. I just think that sometimes people can get too far down with limiting
trying
beliefs.
to push it on somebody, sure, it's like, well, if somebody comes on and tells you, and in the metaphysical circles, they're some of the first ones to say, if anyone comes at you and tells you this is the truth and this is the way and they have the answers and you need to listen to them, that's toxic behavior. That's like cultish, and nobody knows everything about everything. I think it's when people also that have these beliefs that they try to get everybody else to have also those beliefs, not because they're trying to help humanity, but because they want to control something in some way.
Or seeking validation for their own beliefs.
Right. Okay, so we've beat a dead horse again. We beat this
that
dead horse. Okay, so number 5 is what happens after you die.
Well, you've had your experience you've talked about extensively. I've heard a few other stories about people who have clinically died and come back from the dead, and it seems like there are a variety of experiences being reported. Some people are just total blackness. Some people you're walking into the light. Some people have a life
There's
review.
some commonalities for sure.
What are the commonalities from the ones that
So
you've
the
heard?
commonalities, and you can go look on this website. It's, I forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's IANDS, IANDS. Okay. It's like something international near death something research or whatever. So all this research that they have on there, and they have support groups as well. But some of the commonalities of near death experience, if you want to take your average near death experiencer, they might have an experience where they're floating out of their body and are aware of leaving their body. One of them is that they have a life review so that they can, if you want to say your life flashed before your eyes, or that you're shown your whole life and that you understand how you impacted others. One commonality is then maybe you're given a choice to come back or not. One is you also see deceased family members. There's a few more, but those are the ones that stick out the most. Not everyone sees God, not everyone sees angels, but I think for the most part, you have your life review, you know you're dead, you go to this place that seems positive, and you feel this unconditional love and everything's okay. And it's almost like waking up from a dream. You kind of forget that you even lived this life back here, that people are grieving for you, because that's so far removed from your current state of being wrapped in this unconditional love of existence, that it is like waking up from a bad dream. A lot of people have described that too, and not wanting to go back because they're like, there's like pain back there. I don't want to do that. So I believe in not just what happens after death, but that there is life after death, because some people don't think there's life after death. They think this is the only thing.
Yeah, no, we're in alignment on that. I definitely think the soul is eternal and it will live on when our bodies die. I sure would hope so. It would seem a sad existence if it didn't, but it would be what it is, I guess. I'm open to the possibility. But yeah, I don't necessarily have any inklings. I've had some familiarity.
Okay. No, I can't say it either. Familiarity. You are familiar with.
I'm familiar with. Somewhat.
Why is that hard?
I don't know. But anyway, what I was getting to was when you are oxygen deprived and how that affects your brain and how your brain fires or misfires in those moments, that can cause a memory dump, which might explain the life review. Once I'm on the other side, I'll know some answers to these questions, but it's interesting to me that, in my view, probably some of the experiences that are being had, like a life review, may just be biological, physiological things happening, and we're experiencing that, whereas some things might be they're being shown a life review. That implies that there's something, some entity or some consciousness doing the showing versus it's just happening and firing off in the brain. So that's interesting to me that there are, multiple plausible explanations for these different experiences, the variety of experiences, but the common things that happen, I think, are really interesting. I mean, certainly like a life review, you could say maybe that's physiological, brain functioning happening, but seeing deceased family members, where does that fit?
Talking with them. And the bit that, a lot of, I don't remember if this was on the common list, but it's definitely on the list of, and people that they like to do their research on, is people that have stories that, let's say they were in some type of medical crisis and maybe on the operating table. And when they quote had their floating out of body moment, that they can, when they come back, they can recite what the doctor said. Or there was one where it was like, hey, there's a red shoe on top of the roof on the hospital that nobody knew was there because they saw it when they were floating up. So it's these things that you can't otherwise prove that doesn't happen in your brain because you didn't know that before, and you couldn't have known it when you're like in an induced coma. You're not hearing, you're not seeing, you're not out in the hall with the nurse who's talking about you, or you travel to your daughter's house and see that she's talking on the phone to so-and-so, and this was what her conversation was, and you came back and you just know that. I don't think that's your brain misfiring. I think that's something more. That's
maybe something more, but the brain is a very powerful electrical energy generating thing, and we only use a very small portion of it most of the time. And I'm thinking about people who have taken DMT or some type of hallucinogen, and all of a sudden they're seeing fairies in the forest that may or may not be there. Maybe we can have those extra sensory, extra biological, outside of the body perceptions. It would be like astral projecting, right? My neighbor that lives down the street, I can go and hear that conversation in astral.
Right. But then the doctors are like, you're clinically dead. You have no heart rate. So that's when they call it a near-death experience, is in these instances where they can hear the nurse or hear the whatever, is at that same time that that's happening, you have been pronounced dead. So it's not like a dream astral experience, because when you have astral experiences, your silver cord is still connected to your body that is alive and asleep. So the audience, like, do you believe in life after death? And what do you think happens? And I think that brings us into, from a religious standpoint, okay, well, is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Do we stay there forever? Is this our only one life? And like we talked about reincarnation, do we just keep recycling and doing different things and having different experiences? And it's not like in Christian teachings where you just have this one life, you're born a sinner. Hopefully, during that life, you have atoned for all of your sins and accepted Jesus as your savior. And then by the time that you die, you get to go to heaven. If you don't do that, you get to go to hell for all of eternity.
Sounds pretty scary.
It sounds pretty scary. At the same time, they believe in this all-knowing, all-loving God who would create them.
Who's also vengeful and wrathful.
Who would create them to... No, a lot of Christians don't think that. They think that you've got this all-loving God and he's going to forgive you if you do this and that and the other. But if you sin and do this, then you're going to go to hell for all of eternity, where there's this devil and these demons who are separate from God. I don't know. Even as a kid, I was like, that doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel like that's how I would define this, quote, God who would intentionally create a human and say, here you go, free will. Do what you want. This is all a big test to see whether you are in excruciating pain for all of eternity or in this heavenly bliss. To me, I was like, I don't think that's a thing. But for me. All right. So number six, hey, you put 3 fingers up. No, like just 3.
Oh.
Number 6. Number 6 on our list is multiple dimensions. Are there dimensions around us that we can't see? And what's in those dimensions? And can we travel to those dimensions? And can we find portals to those dimensions?
I had a weird experience a couple of days ago, and I haven't confirmed yet if it's real or not, because I just need to send an email basically to confirm it. I haven't, but what's that thing called? The Mandela effect. So I had this weird
Mandela
effect the other day that happened that makes me think I've been moving between one dimension to another, possibly, because I was putting together an annual report for my job and I was seeking very specific information from another program's annual report. And I was looking for, they have these awards, and this is a research group, and they have a new investigator and an established investigator award. And I was looking for a particular year, 2024. And they didn't have their 2024 report up yet, so I looked at the 2023, and I was just going to pull some photos from there. And I looked and I saw who their awards went to, and I was like, that's not correct, because I went to a conference where they handed out the awards to 2 totally different people. I was there, I took photos, I documented it, and it's even in some of the reports that I created. And so, but then somehow I'm looking at this report from the same year, and there's 2 completely different people. And I'm just like,
somebody didn't update it.
No.
Or they wrote the wrong year on it.
But it's a whole entire multi-dozens of pages report. Someone would have noticed. And I'm like, I went to the conference. I remember. I know who I was with. I took photos. I still have a past report with other people's photos that said this is who won these awards in 2023. And so I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what that is. I need to send the lady who does the reports an email being like, am I tripping? What's going on here? Did I get the year wrong the first time I went to the conference and was just thinking I was in 2023 at the time? Like, I don't know.
Maybe you were there in 2022.
Maybe.
Or maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe this, like deja vu. People are like, wait a second. I've lived this moment before. I know what's getting ready to happen when I'm putting jelly on my toast and my mom's going to come around the corner and say, hey, did you feed the dog? A lot of people have had deja vu and they know what that feels like. But I think maybe, you put something in your path where you notice when you jump a timeline, or because I've noticed occasionally when I've jumped timelines, not very often, but sometimes it's like you leave yourself a little clue so that when you're in that new timeline, you can be aware of it and be like, yes, it's a thing.
Yeah, I've had those moments where it'd be like one small thing is different. It'd be like the frame on my sunglasses or something. And I'd be like,
you could swear that it was different.
Yesterday?
Yes.
But I also know logically that our brain plays tricks on us, right? Or we might forget, and our memory's fuzzy type of mess. So Yeah, another mystery. Did you really jump timelines, or maybe
Yeah.
you just super forgetful?
A lot of people like, oh, is there dimensions around us? They think about, okay, we're here on this earth. I'm living in this house, but other like buddy else in a slightly altered dimension is also living in this house. And it's like, we can't see them. You know, they're not necessarily like dead people, ghosts or whatever, but you think about, well, what exists in these other dimensions? Are there beings there? Does my house look the same there? Can I fall into a portal and wake up and be in such a completely, vastly different space that I'm like, oh shit, how do I get back?
Yes, 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 and yes, because I'm answering that from your point of view, because you have said many times that it's an infinite number of multiple parallel, right, universes, existences. So if that's the case, then yes, in some other reality, in some other dimension, all those things you just described are happening.
That is yes, I would answer it that way, but I think those are the questions people have and that they ponder. But
would you say then, going back to karma now, would you say then you have one dimension, and in this dimension, you're at the soul contract level, you're making your soul contract, and you have another parallel dimension, same you, well, different you in a different dimension, making a soul contract.
that's a different soul. It's not the same soul.
There's a question in there and I lost it, but I mean, I was just trying to understand, like, if there's infinite versions of you, then your one soul has contracted to do an infinite version of things at the same time.
No. That other quote version of me has a different soul. That version of me, that's not me anymore. 5 seconds ago, me is not the me that's now. 5 seconds ago, me has a different soul. 5 seconds from now has a different soul. Everything, if you want to think about that, there's really no time and space because all time and space exists all at once. Kind of like the TV analogy. You don't even have to turn on the TV to know the channels that are there and the content is there. It can be paused or it can be played. So think about all the channels on your TV, that there's hundreds and thousands of movies and TV shows, and the TV's off. So let's imagine them all paused. So think of that as in, if there's no experience of time, all of that still exists. Let's just say it's in stasis and not moving. It's all there. So based on your vibrational frequency, you're moving through that. It's like billions of frames per second. You're moving from The Walking Dead.
I get that.
When you make that move, you're literally a different person in a different space, in a different time. You have a different soul. You have a different past. You have a different future. It may look extremely similar to what you just came from, or else we wouldn't have this continuity of time. I'm not going to change into a mushroom 5 seconds from now.
So I conceptually understand everything you just said. My question becomes and remains really, why then do we have or need soul contracts? If all of those things are playing out and we can jump from here to there as we evolve and change, whether it's minute or small, if we're constantly moving from one dimension to another based on our vibration, where does a soul contract fit
You're
into
not
that?
moving from one dimension to another. You're moving to a vibrational frequency to another.
Okay, well, same difference in my
different.
mind.
Well, okay. So I think this is my assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're thinking of a soul contract as fixed, negative.
Sounds like a
Pointless.
contract is contract. Contract is contract.
Okay, so change the word contract. I'm sure at the soul level they don't call it a contract.
Then again, if it's just a
a
plan or a guide, the soul guide or the soul plan, why would there even need to be forethought or foresight into that and to generate that if right now, all the time, every time, the multiple iterations of my soul and all the different ways it could manifest is happening? Why would we need to plan something that's already in existence?
Because
happening?
You want to have the experience that everything's not happening all at once. Again, just like we decide we want to go to the store and eat some freaking or turn on the radio because we've decided we want to do something different now. For whatever reason, entertainment, learn a lesson.
Couldn't that just be as simple as jumping a timeline? Why does it have to be a soul guide or a soul plan? Because plan implies foresight. Whereas jumping might just be, I've made a choice now, I want to do something different. To me, that's two different things.
Your soul is not like out of the loop in any decisions that its body is making. Anything that is relevant for you to do in this body is like going to also be relevant for the soul. Not every single thing is directly connected to that specific contract plan. There may be things that seem very indirectly or not at all connected to whatever your major life passion, but ultimately, to answer your question, it's because they want to have the experience of limitation. We want to have the experience of forgetting. There are some souls that go and incarnate somewhere and they have a birth experience and they know from the time they're born that they're a soul and that they have this plan and they came to this place to do this thing. It's not like a secret to them. They're not keeping a secret from themselves. They're not testing themselves in that way.
I mean,
because it's kind of like,
that could make
play
sense.
games. Like I like to play games that are more challenging because I'm like, ooh, I want to learn the rules and I want to, I want to play it. I want to see how I can beat it.
I want to learn the
You
rules.
never play a game to not beat the game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's games now where it's just like role playing or whatever, but for the most part, if you think about the video games that we grew up on and the board games we grew up on, there is a winning end point where you feel like you beat that game.
Finish him.
So like, first time I beat Sonic the Hedgehog and Donkey Kong, I was like, yes, the final boss. And I'm like, okay, what's there to do now? I just go to my next thing that I go do.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that life or whatever. I'm going to go do something else now. Okay. If you love our videos, and even if you don't, you should subscribe and you should like and share and tell all your friends and family about this wonderful podcast. Support us in that way. Make sure you go to groundedgalactic.com. That's where you can find out everything you need to know about us.
Word.